Hello, and welcome to The Forgotten King, an audio drama presented by Story Games. Let's tell a story.
Queen Breya and Ilium Reaver walked slowly down the steps of the tower. It was only slightly slower than their normal pace, which was leisurely at its fastest, a pace they kept while swapping whispers at the same time each day. Breya wore a dark maroon single-piece day dress. A smoothed bronze crown sat on top of her auburn hair, with polished velvet jewels inlaid between its weaving metal fingers. Ilium wore layers of brown, rough-spun pants, shirt, and vest. It was an altogether forgettable outfit, which is exactly how he preferred it. He looked more like a closet of people, nearly impossible to describe or remember. They stepped quietly, appropriately matching the decibel of their voices, just more than a whisper, and not quite the volume of their full speaking voice. "These riders are not the same threat as the ones I have come to know," Ilium maintained as they descended. "This sounds like the kind of long tale young boys make up to scare each other at night around the fire. Black cloaked riders, with no faces and command of the rain. I wouldn't hold much stock in it." "My husband's sister didn't seem to think so," Breya argued. "Her mind is susceptible to the stories of the woods, as ought to happen when you poison yourself with mind-altering plants and drink." This is true. She always was a night panther, as I remember. Brooding. I knew she didn't like me the minute she saw me. Not that I was very likable back then, but nonetheless, Gale seemed to think her words were valid. And he has a sharp mind for sensing the truth, especially when it is veiled by extravagant presentations. "I'm agreed, my queen." "Agree with which part? That Gale has a grounded mind, or that my stepsister's visions were warranted?" "Both, I suppose, but for what my opinion is worth. And as my worth is predicated on the opinions I form from my spies in the world, I feel I should tell you that the threat from the north in Dormyth is paramount, and should take precedence over these riders. I hear there aren't more than 10. "My brother-in-law doesn't wish a rebellion. My sister wouldn't allow it. Of that I can assure you." The queen practically rolled her eyes and threw her hand at Ilium's words, swatting at them like a fly. "Don't swat my words away, Breya. You pay for them with gold. I bring them to you by paying well for them myself." Breya spun on her heels and stepped towards him. "Out with it. The truth, Ilium. Dormyth stirs with unrest. They think they should have the crown and authority." Breya let the weight of those words stew. "When was the last time you saw your sister?" "It has been some time. 4 years, if memory serves, and that was only for the birth of their daughter. Admittedly, I was never fond of that place." "Yes, it's a cold land, full of men with more stones than brains in their head," Ilium sympathized. "My thoughts exactly. Perhaps we should arrange a caravan. In the new year, mid-Halamon, for gifting day. We can go up north to their hearth and home and clear up the matter as a family." "Family are the hardest people to clear up any matter with." Breya pivoted past Ilium's next turn. "Send a messenger hawk to my sister asking if she'll host us. And let's inform Gale." "As you command, Queen Breya." "Do it gently. He hasn't been sleeping well lately. Don't elaborate." "Elaborations are paid with copper. Your gold coins only buy the choicest of words, my queen." Ilium smiled charmingly. They had reached the bottom of the stairs and heard a dull clang of training swords smashing their necks into each other. Coming into the doorway of the sword room, she found her son, Produs, and Malar Nightbringer mid-lesson, blades flailing. Her heart always skipped when she saw Malar. They were lovers for a time, after all. And when a heart feels true love, even just once with another person, it never, ever forgets. It made Breya smile to see her middle child getting one-on-one instruction with Malar. She had always felt somewhat neglectful of his needs and wants. Quintus, her firstborn, the babe that made her a mother, and Kyla, her little flower, both naturally commanded more of her affection. Protus was just Protus, a curse the middle child of most families often faced. Still, she loved him with all that she was, and couldn't help rooting for him, always. 1,000 hands clapping and a shower of roses, she exclaimed as she threw her hands wide and entered the chamber. "Hello, Mother," Protus replied, never taking his attention away from Malar and his sword. "Just a moment, I'm quite certain Malar's about to lose," he spat out between blocks and blows. The old knight and the prince rattled off a few more exchanges of steel until Malar put the hilt of his sword and his left hand in a bind with Protus's sword. He twisted and popped the weapon out of the prince's hand like a turnip plucked from the soil by a gardener. "What in the world was that?" Protus said, bewildered. Malar Nightbringer let out a scoff and a laugh. "It was 2 things. 1, a reminder that I don't teach all my tricks to you little rugrats. And 2, being certain about anything in battle is a sure way to a quick death. I've seen veteran knights fall to young squires, lad. Certainty can get a man killed as quickly as an arrow." "A fine lecture, Malar," Brea complimented as she stepped further into the circle. Then to her son, "You are right to be confident, Protus." She picked his face up in her hands. "You will be a great swordsman one day. I can see it in you, like birds know where worms are hiding in the ground." "Thank you, Mother." He shook away from her grasp and turned back to his teacher. "Now you'll teach me that maneuver, Malar. I command it." He picked up the sword and took guard. Brea felt a pinch of disappointment swirl in her heart. "He doesn't have the mind of a leader," she thought to herself. "He thinks leading gives him the right to tell others what to do. Fortunately, Quintus will take the throne, and he is better suited to rule." "I don't take orders from you, lad. Only from your father. And your mother, should she ever ask." Malar stood his ground, not raising his sword. Protus took a step closer, his sword back up in guard. "My father pays you to teach us, and I'm asking you to teach." Protus stepped an inch closer. "You're stepping in a direction you don't want to go, lad. I respectfully promise you that." Malar hadn't moved a muscle. His breathing remained calm and deep, his eyes like storms. "You would do well to respect Malar, my love. Besides, now is not the time. Our presence is required in the throne room with your father." Brea extended a hand to Protus. "Will you join me?" As Brea ushered her son to join her, her eyes met Malar, and a soft smile spread across both their faces. Protus took in a frustrated breath and sagged his shoulders, tossing his sword to the side. It clanged on the outside of the circle against the stone floor, sending another wave of discontent over Brea. "That doesn't go there, lad." Malar eyed the sword. "Kyla can get it when she starts this afternoon," he said, walking past his mother and towards the door. "Maybe you can do that little trick on her, too," he finished, never turning back as he walked out of the room, his chin held a tad too high. "Your father was a brave man," King Gale sympathized after hearing Thario's story. "I remember him from the war. He was a fearless soldier, a servant of Eldaron." "He was a farmer at heart, my lord, and a husband, and a father. Those are the things he did best. I don't think he ever much cared for being a knight. He talked about it as if it were remembering a nightmare, but he was brave," Thario said, having a hard time making eye contact with the king. "Not all brave men are knights, and not all knights are brave men. If you are half the man you make your father out to be, perhaps we can find a greater use for you yet." "I've always been partial to books, my lord, if I take your meaning correctly. That is to say, if you wish me to be a fighter, like my father, I'm not sure I'd be doing the thing I was meant to do." "I see. Perhaps it is wise to put more books in youthful hands than swords. You would agree, wouldn't you, Zorion?" King Gale looked over at the blind seer. "Undoubtedly," he chirped from his old chair beside the king. Zorion was there, and Kyla, as well as the King's Circle and other members of the Royal Council. Quintus was seated to the right of his father, as was custom. And just then, Queen Brea, Prodos, and Ilium Reva made their entrance into the great room. It was a stunning chamber. A great stone cylinder with an impossibly tall ceiling and many rectangular openings in the walls to let the sunlight in. They were covered with coloured glass depicting the great victories of the Arron family line, all the way back to the beginning of the Second Age. Wars won, battles come and gone, places discovered, treasures found. One could spend a full day lost in their still stories. And there was a great flame laid into the floor at its centre, the forever burning sigil of the royal family, and 4 smooth stone pillars erected from the centre quadrants of the room, holding up the ceiling some 50 paces above. The king sat on a wooden throne that was modest in make and size, impeccably handcrafted arms, legs and back, constructed from a single summer oak tree from Green Lake Forest. It weighed as much as a horse. Its dark brown, grained wooden skin still looked like a giant tree under the king. All of the chairs of the royal council were made of ornate wood from the various regions of Eldaron. There were 7 chairs in total. A fire fir from the amber forest for Zorion, a frost pine from the crossed-wind forest near the city of Lynn for Brea. Sir Ilium's chair was made of coalwood from the dead forest in the east. It seemed most suited to his dress and personality. A bright, light-skinned summer oak was under Quintus's bottom, which left Kyla and Prodos with a pair of twin birch trees from Raka's woods at the base of the small mountains. "Ah," the king started, raising his hand and gesturing behind Thario to his wife, middle child, and advisor. "And here is the rest of the family. My bride, Queen Brea. Prodos, my second eldest, and though Master Ilium isn't of my blood, his wisdom and far-reaching ears keep the blood flowing in my veins and not on the floor." Thario turned to smile and bow at the rest of the Arrons. "Where'd you drag him in from, Quintus?" Prodos joked as he walked past Thario and sat on his small birch throne. "Stay your tongue, Prodos. I won't have you insult our guest," the king snapped back. Prodos barely seemed to hear it. "He is to take lodging in these walls for as long as he or I see fit, and as he is our first eyewitness to the Black Riders we have heard rumours of these past weeks, I advise you treat him with the respect he deserves, or I shall treat you with the respect you deserve in turn." "1,000 times 1,000 apologies, brave farm boy," Prodos mockingly bowed to Thario. "It's no matter," Thario bowed back to the young prince. "About the riders," Ilium began as he folded his arms and slid to the shaded side of the stone pillar on the king's left. "I was discussing with your wife the possibility that these men in black robes on horseback may not be the threat that deserves our first attention. After all, my ears have led me to believe it isn't more than 10 men that ride. Is that right, Master Thario?" "Indeed, 7 only." Ilium used the validation to step forward into the centre of the room, adding gravity to his words. "There is a greater threat to king and crown, I fear, and it comes at the behest of much more than men who ride in the rain. I have it under good authority that Dormyth is unsatisfied with the nature of its relationship to Arron. The king eyed his wife for a hint of her thoughts on the words, then turned back to Ilium. "Unsatisfied how?" "The sub-kings splutter to each other in the ice. Their distaste of how Eldaron is governed. Their army is split. Coldor and Aelin are at odds. The wild clans in the north are rallying. And it is all entirely and completely to do with you, King Gale. My word is my bond." Brea ascended the steps to the king's throne and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Coldor always was a man of ambition, the king remembered. "Ambition and greed are 2 different motivators," Brea replied. "2 sides of the same coin, though," Ilium threw in. "Though the queen speaks true. I do not know the individual will of the frozen king, only the sum of the rumours my informants have fished from the pool. I know which way the school of Trite swim. I do not know which fish swims at the head of the school. But I hold my caution. I believe it requires our attention more than these banshees of the storm. Quintus, what do you propose? King Gale turned all eyes to his son. He was doing this more, putting his heir in the middle of a problem to see how he would react. Gale had been known as a rational thinker, calculating, slow to decide, deep of thought. Quintus seemed a similarly minded man. It took the 23-year-old prince a moment to gather his thoughts. I think there is truth in Ilium's words, as there tends to be. Mother has said that Aelin and Coldor were only ever a political match. Perhaps Coldor does have it in mind to overthrow our house, but I believe Master Thario speaks of an enemy that looks to bring death to us all, not just to Arron, but all of Eldaron. Aunt Nessa said as much in her Mindspeak. Thario confirmed these suspicions. The riders asked where you were, Father. We know they're coming for you. As such, I believe in two courses of action. Mother should ride north to Dormyth to meet with her sister and King Coldor. A small battalion will accompany her, not large enough to suggest an assault, but not so small to leave her defenseless. Then I will take Thario and a small group of men to gather information on these riders plaguing our lands. We will not engage with them, just learn more of their wants and needs. Prodos could come with, Shiro and perhaps Raven, and Zorion, as I am quite certain these men have a magical nature about them that may render the sword and shield useless. I'll be coming as well then, Kyla blurted from next to Prodos. No, King Gale boomed. You are not ready. If the farm boy is going, shouldn't I be allowed to go? You saw me in the sword room. You know I can... She stopped her sentence when her father gave her a look that held her tongue like a blacksmith's pincers. No, he turned back to Quintus, and you've quickly forgotten the aspirations of your new friend. Thario has seen enough of the foul beasts towards whom you ride. I promised a book in his hand, not a sword. You didn't promise, my king, but I am glad for your sharp memory, Thario humbly added. Fine then, Kyla and Thario will stay. Raven, will you come? Quintus interjected. Raven stepped from the darkest shadow of the corner of the room. Thario didn't even know she was there until she spoke. I'm sure I'll find somewhere to stick my blades. She twirled a small dagger between her fingers. Well ordered, Quintus. I am in almost complete agreement with your plan, the king concluded. What did I miss? Quintus asked. I'd never let your mother travel to Dormyth alone. His eyes were like burning embers. We protect each other over succumbing to the need of vanquishing our enemy. He let his words fill the chamber, hoping they went to all his council, not just his heir. Do you understand? He finished, looking back at Quintus. I do. I'll do better next time, Quintus said confidently. I believe you, the king replied. Your Grace, if you'll allow it, I'll accompany Quintus on his errand. The Cold and I never really got along. I will protect him like he was you. Sir Cian, the assassin from Naros, spoke up from the circle which flanked behind the king in a hemisphere. Leave it to a Nerosian to slither off at the first sight of a wee bit of snow. Sir Liam Glow laughed from the other side. This brought a brotherly chuckle from all the other knights. It's decided then. The Queen and I will leave for Dormyth. Quintus, Prodos, Shiro, Sir Cian and Raven will ride east to uncover the identity of these Black Riders. You promise not to engage them, Quintus and Prodos? The Queen confirmed. Information gathering only, Quintus assured her. Unless they fight us, Prodos announced, a little too confidently. If they attack, you run. Is that plain enough? His father chided. Prodos took a moment to consider the terms. Fine, he resolved. The fate of our family and kingdom rests on the outcome of these two quests. May Shire guide you and keep you in her light. I'm uncertain that this is the right thing to do, my love, Queen Brea admitted as she packed her travel chest. I don't doubt your wisdom, I just carry the fear of a mother over her sons. I carry the same worry. But fear will not guide our actions. Quintus will be king soon enough, and knowing we can trust him with tasks like this one will give him the confidence when it's his time to rule. He put his hand on her back reassuringly. You're not wrong, but my fear remains, she confided in him. Such is the weight of being a parent. He went back to packing. What do you make of Sir Ilium's claim? Do you believe Dormyth looks to take the crown? It is as he said. I do not believe Coldor would have war with us, but Dormyth isn't ruled by him alone. If there is truth to the rumours Ilium's spies have uncovered, then my sister's life and his may be in danger as much as ours. Those that want your crown may also want his head, if he feels differently than they do. It will be cold up there this time of year, the king prophesied, mulling over her words. It's always cold up there, she reminded him. Do you still favour the cold, how it was in Lynn? It's not cold, it's chill. The cool mist kissing your face off the coast, while looking out over the shuttered islands. It's heaven, my love, but it's not unlike the heaven I see in your eyes. I hope they don't put us in that guest tower again. The bed there is stiff as stone, and the floor as cold as ice. It's only a short while. So we hope. So it will be, my king. Family visits are like fish. They start to turn after 3 days. She always had a way of being a light for him. Her smile made his worries dissipate. Should we continue packing then? He rose. Not now, though I'll pack one last garment before we stop. She pushed away from him and began to take off her day dress. The king felt himself stiffen as he watched her. She never took her eyes from his as her clothes fell to her ankles. The women from the sky city of Lynn were not ones to hide their bodies from their lovers. She crawled onto the bed, letting him look at her from behind, until she turned and laid back against the pillow and headboard. The king of Arron smiled at the lady of Lynn, laying there waiting for him, an entire age of memory skittering across the short distance between them. She reached for him with her left hand and gestured for him to join her. Bring me your heat, my love. It's my favourite source of warmth in the world. A shudder ran through the king that pulled him forward and on top of her. When they kissed, it was more than just a connection of lips and tongue. Their skin kissed, their fingers embraced, their hearts beat in rhythm, and their souls became one. And for the rest of the hour and night, the worries of Eldaron were held at bay outside the royal chamber.
The Forgotten King was created and written by Michael Stagliano. Story by Michaela Oberhofer, El Silito, Matthew Pajad, Maisie Foth, Matthew O'Connell, and Stephen Stagliano. Voice narration by Kitty Liddon. Sound design and scoring by Chris Kirk. Produced by Greg Wood and Emil Hanton.